Harvard Press. I was proud of them. By a Chinese woman named Jacqueline Li, called the Tibet in Agony, or the Agony of Tibet. I keep forgetting exactly which. In which is about the 1959 so-called uprising in Lhasa, which she for the first time she tells the true story of that. And I didn't even know it really clearly myself, but she told it very clearly with all kinds of memos from Mao and Deng and all this kind of thing. And then she has tremendous data of Amdo, where Menla comes from the huge killing that went on in Amdo, from Chinese secret police reports. It was. So what is that noise? You just made a noise. Justin. So Menla, had he been some sort of an official thing from long before, it would have been very difficult. So he came from a humble family of nomads, but sort of well recognized for a number of important spiritual scholars in their past. And actually, one of the most famous Tibetan poets, oh, there's Menla. Famous Tibetan poets is a brother of Menla's, Chenagtsang, who wrote, what's his other name again? I forgot. He wrote a number of poems that have been translated in English. And also later, in the 80s, the people in Amdo, because they were considered part of Inner Tibet and not what the Chinese communists think that it was Tibet, the 2/5 of the country, they had more minority schools. They were allowed to learn stuff in their language during the sort of relaxation period in the 80s. And then there was a sort of attempt to be more relaxed with them all. So then there are a lot of great Amdos. The Amdos are really... Actually, I brought today, I wear again Menla's honor, but I didn't get around to changing it. I brought a special shirt that I got. The Amdo Cafe. It's the Amdo Cafe. Amdo Cafe. You know, I was like an honorary Amdo, by many Tibetans for years ago. So I don't know, Menla, you were never proclaimed Tulku, right? Which was lucky. I was telling them that was lucky for you because you might have been arrested if you had been a formal Tulku. It doesn't mean you're not a Tulku, but you weren't formally recognized as such, right? And you're like Templeton. We had one geisha who worked with many of my students and colleagues who came to America in the 70s and 80s, and then he passed away in the noughts. No, even 2013, I think, after the noughts. The teens, and he was very, very skilled and capable, a great teacher and beloved by his students. So they asked him, they said, Menla, you're so great, Ishala, you're so great. How come you're not a Tulku, the official reincarnation? And he said, well, he said, I always wanted to be, but all the good ones were taken. In other words, all the famous people in the past, somebody else was like nominated, which is all silly because actually the Buddhas never leave. They don't go away. They will leave a particular body to teach impermanence to people and how precious their humanoid body is. So Siddhartha body, which became Shakyamuni Buddha, then he's okay, I'm finished now, I'm leaving. Just after telling his main disciple, Shariputra, some months after that, you know, I could stay like 1,000 years if I wanted to. Because by Buddhahood, you don't have, it's a sci-fi thing, you don't have an ordinary body. You know, you have this magic body. Actually, people, even in this translation, they're calling illusory body. I never call it illusory body. Maya Deha, it's Gyulu. It's called in Tibetan, Maya Deha. But the word Maya, which means illusion, so it's not wrong, but it's a little rude. Illusory means like something not quite real. But magic body, the word also Maya means magic. So Buddha's mother's name was Maya Devi, magic goddess, that means. And magic has a little bit positive connotation usually, right? We like, oh, magic, oh, that's magical, we say. So it's really magic body. That once you're a Buddha, you have a magic body. So they never leave, A. B, Tulku, which means Nirmanakaya, body of emanation. Do you know about the 3 bodies of Buddha? Does everybody know about a full-fledged Buddha in Mahayana has what's called 3 bodies? And sometimes 4, I mean, they have different ways, but Usually 3. Does everyone know that? No?
I know 2.
Well, there's the reality body, which is everything, right? That's the real one. That's the ultimate one. That's the nirvanic one. That's the bliss void, indivisible one, etc., right? But then, just to sort of deal with the paradox of things, there's said to be what's called the material body or form body. Usually people translate as form, but I think that's really not so good because it means what's substance body, material body. And then that has 2 types. One of them is called Sambhogakaya, which means the enjoyment body, or the total enjoyment body, the longja dopiku, the complete enjoyment body, like bliss, body of pure bliss, which is not visible to beings unless they are close to that state. They're like high bodhisattvas, 10th stage or something. So it doesn't help regular beings like me, because I can't see it, So then he has Nirmanakaya, which is called body of emanation. And body of emanation is there to interact with all the beings. And that's what tulku is, a translation of that word, tulku. Tul means a magical emanation, or again, has a slightly idea of illusory emanation. And that is as many as beings need. There's no limit. So for example, I used to translate for different lamas, but particularly one who lived with us for quite a while, who was the former abbot of Tantric College, Taratoku, marvelous man. And in interreligious dialogues, and he would always get into it with these Christian theologians. Your God is omnipotent, right? Yes. He can do whatever he wants then, right? Yes. How come you only have one son? And then there's the right elaborate kind of, theological reasons are given. And then he would say to that person, well, how many children do you have? Oh, I have 4. I remember particularly one Lutheran minister. Oh, I have 4. You have 4, but omnipotent God can only have 1? Well, and then more theological reasons. And they went on, tried all kinds of ways to, could he have had a son, for example, yes, could he have had a son or daughter that would be in some other country or culture that nobody would ever heard of in the Middle East? Could he have done that? No, he would never have done that because this one son took care of the whole problem. But those people don't know about him, right? And then you say the people who don't know about him, they're doomed to hell anyway, even however holy they were, however great. Yes. Well, so he would get stumped like that. So finally, at the end of it, he says to me in Tibetan, oh, well, he said, I guess the old boy only had 1 bullet in him. Referring to the omnipotent God. So then I burst out laughing, of course. He said in Tibetan, right? So then my face turned red because the theologian was like, what did he say? What did he say? And I had to think of something. I thought the joke might be a little much. So, well, he just said that it's really fascinating, all kinds of ideas. But then I went on to explain that the Buddhists feel, even though they don't say Buddha's omnipotent, they never say that. But I think nowadays I use the word omnicompetent. Is capable of doing whatever needs to be done, sort of thing. So omnicompetent, can't just do everything for everybody, but is very competent interacting with what people are doing to help it be successful. So therefore, this incarnation thing, he asked a question like, were you an official incarnation? And I said, I consider you officially an incarnation. That's what I recognize. And this Yutok Yanden Gompo, the junior, and because Yutok, by the way, the Italians owe the Tibetans huge royalty, over 1,000 years, or no, 600 years royalty, because the Tibetans invented pasta. Did you guys know that? I bet you didn't. You just think Tibet is some weird thing, a bunch of weirdos. They invented pasta. Actually, it was in Amdo, where Genla comes from. So they invented pasta, as acknowledged by Chinese archaeologists, and everyone else agrees. And why? You can't bake at altitude. To make up, I saved somebody's life once by trying to bake a pizza at about 8,000 feet in Dalhousie. And it took so long that we didn't have dinner till 10 p.m. They came at 5:30. And then they went home, didn't get home till 11:30. And when they got home, a giant boulder, it was a rainy season in India, went down and crushed their living room and house, that they lived in, that little hut that they lived in. They would have been killed sitting where they usually sit from this huge boulder. So I really know that it takes a lot of fuel and a long time to bake anything at altitude. So pasta, you boil it. You add an egg or butter or water, and you knead it, and then you boil it. And that's why it was invented at altitude, pasta. So Marco Polo Incorporated owes a lot of money to the Tibetans, tremendous amount of money. So I forgot why I mentioned that. It's a previous life of young Dutta Yonten Gompo. Then he realized that some people had refined and developed pastite further. Even though Tibetans invented it, he wanted to go collect on that revenue. So Genla managed to go live in Italy, the land of pasta. And he's collecting what is owed to Amdo, to his people. And the point is, if you become a Buddha, you don't have to do anything after that. You're sort of there, But you're everywhere, right? But you can do everything, and you do automatically do it. And the reason you do it, it's because people's need draws you from your place of like the clear light where you are the sort of medium, you are the nirvana, your body is the nirvana in which the beings are swimming, thinking they're fighting upstream or downstream and they have to conquer the ocean, and therefore losing and failing to conquer it because they can't. And you're there to do whatever it is, so you can rain embodiments and incarnations on the people, if it would help. Okay? So this is the amazing thing. So it's magical and miraculous, the vision of reality of the Buddhists. It's sci-fi. It's way ahead of the time. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, not even esoteric, when Buddha starts to teach, and this one made me mad when I first discovered it again. I had already been studying maybe 15, 20 years, working hard, meditating, and trying to, well, of course, failing mostly, but still trying hard, studying. And in the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Buddha sits there, and first of all, other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas come from all kinds of other universes in a huge stream of beings coming from outside this universe to witness his teaching, because it's always a great thing. And there's even parking problems, because they come in giant 1,000-story towers. Forget about Trump. 1,000-story towers made of woven flower petals with 10,000 bodhisattvas in each one from all different directions, and they specify from the northwest this one, from the east that one, from the west the other one, and they arrive around where the Buddha is. It's like a close encounter of the umpteenth third time. And then it takes a long time describing all these creatures and things, and then deities come, and sci-fi kind of creatures, and they're all around Buddha. Somehow, all of them, Buddha doesn't need an interpreter, because when he speaks any word, everybody who hears it in their own language. He also doesn't need media and Facebook Live, because everybody in the audience sees the Buddha as if they were right in front of him. He has like really multimedia ability. He has. But that's all fine. I was all going with all that. It was tiresome to keep reading it because it's sort of repetitive with different names. It's beautiful, but repetitive. And it's like incantatory. And then the Buddha does something called the the lion's stretch, Simha Vijambita Samadhi, the lion's stretch. And when a lion gets up, or a cat, how they go like this. They kind of stretch out. Vijambita, it means. It can also have another meaning. But he does that samadhi, at which point he turns blue, in that instance they say he's manifesting oneness with Vairochana Buddha, who you talked about in the head chakra. And the body Buddha, that is, of the 5 Buddhas. And then from a tuft of hair on the middle of his forehead, little transistor thing, a light ray zoomed out into this huge audience from multiple universes. And the minute that light ray touched the sight of all this vast host of people, every single one of them had an anticipatory experience, like a trailer preview of themselves becoming a Buddha sometime in some universe, and experiencing being going to being in the palace, leaving the palace, going on the ascetical hardship routine for so many years, becoming perfectly enlightened, teaching people, and how it felt to be a Buddha. They had a trailer of their future life in whatever other universe of themselves being a Buddha. And when I first read that, I thought, that's no fair. If Buddha can do that, why am I working so hard? Everybody can just experience themselves in the future being a Buddha, because if you experience it, then you know it's there, and then you have a really powerful motive. Because, of course, being a Buddha is apparently the juiciest experience possible. And Genla's not afraid to talk about it, actually. Even in people translating from Tantra, they translate this Lenje, Dechen, Lenje Dechen. They translate it as innate, or some really miraculous, mysterious people translate it as co-emergent. They have all kinds of stupid translations. Maybe what Lenje means, the bliss born by union. Lenje means born together. But the born together means union of male and female. So the proper translation of the word is orgasmic, which doesn't mean an ordinary ejaculative procreative orgasm. It means this, what Genla mentioned, heart orgasm, brain orgasm. The whole being enters into a permanent orgasmic state. But nobody will translate that. They're like, oh no, something weird. They think about cleaning the sheets, Meanwhile, there's no sheets. It's the whole universe. It's like you see the leaf over there, and it's a bliss just as intense as orgasm, seeing the leaf on the tree outside in the window there. It's like that. So orgasmic is good, and that's great actually, because it connects to Wilhelm Reich. How many of you have ever heard of Wilhelm Reich in this room? Oh, some of it. That's good. He didn't know about this kind of thing, but he naturally has discovered it actually. And he was a great scholar, a student of Freud, discovered that enlightenment in the body, and he wrote his famous book, was called The Function of the Orgasm. But he had a different definition of it. It wasn't just the what they called genitally organized orgasm. It was a total body orgasm that he talked about, that even ordinary people can have if they can kind of stay cool, and not get overexcited. Sort of, unusual people. And his name was Wilhelm Reich. He was very persecuted in Germany. He was originally German. Persecuted in Russia because he thought Russia at first was going to be more open, after the revolution in the 1920s. And then he was persecuted in Germany, and then he was persecuted here in the U.S. actually.
He died in prison.
Because the whole happiness in most countries in the world until now has been more or less illegal. Because if people have too much of it, then they won't work for the state or the high priest or whoever it is that they want. They will just, why should I go fight a war? I'm feeling good. I feel too good. Right, James, was that James Brown? I feel good. And I knew that I would. Right? That's what Buddha said. At the morning under the tree, he said, I feel good. And I knew that I would. So our job at this stage is to imagine that. That's all he's been teaching you is from those chakra systems, is imagining that about your, and opening those chakras. And then my job is to try to, from the ordinary level, because in order to do that effectively, like the chakra system, for example, chakra system is not wetware. It's software. So we all have central nervous systems, which are the whole body, not just the brain and the head. The reason there's a lot of slimeware, I call it, in the head, is that most of the senses are collected there in the human being, except for the skin sense, But most of the organs are in the head. But our whole body is our nervous system, actually. And the central channel is the central part of that body, and then the chakras fit on it. But you know, in India, you'll find Gela. I don't know, you didn't travel around India that, and you probably didn't see them now, though. But you can find funny little books in Indian bookstores, spiritual bookstores, of some doctor in like Andhra Pradesh or somewhere who's dissecting dogs looking for the chakras. You know? Or looking even, and probably human, of course, but they don't show that. Sort of looking for a chakra, where's the chakra, you know? And that's silly, because it's a programming thing. And to program that, you have to have a very powerful confidence in your own imagination. And to have a really vivid and powerful confidence in your own imagination, you have to have retrieved your imagination. Because where is our normal imagination? I can't tell you how many people over the years, and Menla I'm sure more, because he's a real teacher, a spiritual teacher, I'm just an academic one, but in teaching in sort of middle places like here, who say, oh, I can't visualize. Oh, I don't have a powerful imagination. I can leave that to artists or something. But that's not true. Everyone can visualize, and everyone does visualize. And actually, when you look at this flower here, you're visualizing that flower. That is to say, there's a bunch of, supposedly, science tells you, photons that bounce off some molecules of that thing and then go to your optic nerve, and then your mind sort of just reads it off of reality. It's sort of the naive person thinks, but actually someone who studies that, you have an image of a purple flower. Is that a peony, I guess? Is that a peony?
Yeah. Smells like it.
Yeah? That's a peony? Oh, thank goodness. Purple peony. And you imagine, you retrieve that from your data bank in your imagination, and you wrap that over all the buzzing, blooming light energies that are coming at your optic nerve, which itself is a bunch of energies organizing to receive it. And then you recognize and you go, ah, purple peony, quote unquote. And you feel you captured it with that word. But of course, it's a miracle, that flower. Every atom in that flower has a Bodhisattva Samantabhadra in it. And even Mr. and Mrs. Samantabhadra are in every atom in the flower. I mean, everything is not what you think. And that shouldn't be so startling to you in modern, even though it's materialism, that shouldn't be startling with you, because, right, you're all sitting here solidly on the floor, right, on your cushions and pillows, have your body here, you did some meditating, breathing, right, you're really there. Then science would tell you you're mostly empty atoms with little electrons and molecules spinning around, and the sense of yourself as a solid thing is a totally construction, it's an illusion. So therefore, emptiness, what we did a little meditating yesterday, emptiness, selflessness, is by constantly thinking about that. By thinking, when you see something, and it seems like it's really over there, then you realize, well, that's how it looks. But I mustn't just invest it with having intrinsic identity, that is to say, being really a box on the floor, or really a floor. Massively being a floor, objectively being a floor. I must realize that it's a whole bunch of relationalities that I'm having that then I bring up out of my routinized imagination, the idea of a floor, and I slap it on there, you know, and then I think I recognized it. You follow me? But actually I fitted it into my preconceived idea of the universe, is what I have done. A very powerful and energetic act of vivid imagination, to see an ordinary thing and recognize it. So when you reflect on your relationality to that floor, to that seeming quote-unquote floor, or as the Buddhist epistemologists say, when you see floor and not quote floor, when you first see floor, you're not sure what it is, in other words, but you kind of are there with it. Then you are eroding the rigidity of what's called your intrinsic identity habit attached to objects. So you are beginning to become more self-responsible and self-aware of your role in imagining your world, not only yourself in the world and your sort of identity of what you are, what you're capable of, who you are, but also what the world is. And you're eroding your conviction about I'm this and it's that. You follow me? And you're more merging with that world. And you're becoming, therefore, more enlightened. And as you do that in a gradual process, which takes a long time, but you continue to do that, your imagination becomes more free of its, and you become more master of your imagination. And then you really could begin to sort of really move your chakras, you could really, or then of course, be a deity, be a medicine Buddha, or whatever, Tara, if you're doing esoteric things. But you can't do that unless you know that it's another construct, like your ordinary self is a construct. So then you no longer want to construct, you're no longer stuck where your imagination is only on the ordinary construct. And then you're able to create an extraordinary construct. And then when you do Tantra, either Dzogchen or Dzogrim or Kedim, what I call creation stage, what they call other people call development stage, I call creation stage, because you're recreating a world, actually. And because emptiness doesn't let the world disappear. That is the very keyest point. Emptiness doesn't mean it all disappears. You can have an experience of yourself and everything disappearing, which is a valuable one, but you shouldn't misinterpret it to think that that experience is the ultimate end-all thing. It is not. That experience is just a revelation of the constructedness of the world temporarily, where it seems to disappear. What's the problem? I'm sorry. Is there a problem?
There's no problem.
What?
There's no problem.
Oh. So the point is that one Lama I know really brilliantly said that your relative self has been imprisoned since beginningless time within your construct of an absolute self. It's like a kind of cage around it that you just have to be whatever you think you are at whichever time, and you're really absolutely that. So when you look for that ultimate self, like we just did a tiny bit of the other day, and don't find it, and then what is your sense of it having been there disappears, and since it's been so entwined with the relative self for so long, your sense of a relative self also disappears. You follow, because you merge with the absence of the absolute self, and you sort of have a feeling as if your last absolute thing is a feeling of merging into an absolute where you're not there, and nobody's there. And then the misinterpretation is that absoluteness is where you disappear, is reality. That's the reality. Nirvana means just you extinguished yourself. And Western people all thought that's what Buddhists were like. That's why they all thought, for centuries, that Buddhists were all depressed and so unhappy. Then when they saw some Tibetan looking happy, they thought, oh, they couldn't be doing Buddhism. Why are they happy? Because they think it's all suffering and they're trying to extinguish themselves and destroy themselves. And the Western persons, after materialism, after the 17th century and 18th century, they can easily disappear. Just shoot yourself. They think, which of course they have a big wake-up call when they don't disappear, of course. And they're reborn in a body that has a birthmark around the temple where they had the gun placed. And then they're discovered by Ian Stevenson from Virginia or his colleagues. Sometimes if you die a violent death, then you have birthmarks in your next embodiment. He has discovered it. So there's a lot of data on that. And that's why people think, oh, gee whiz, where's Buddha? Buddha disappeared. He attained power nirvana. And they wrongly translated it as final nirvana. And even rainbow body can be misunderstood that way. People can think, oh, he turned into a rainbow and then he disappeared. And that he had relief from that. And even Book of the Dead, it says, you see the light and you go to the heart of Vairochana or of Akshobhya or of Ratnasambhava or of Amitabha. And then you're liberated. And then you don't have to be reborn. And so then people misunderstand, think, oh great, that's all referring to disappearing. But wait a minute, if that's so, then why are these Buddhas still running around teaching? If they all disappeared to be Buddhas. If the ultimate thing is just disappear, just go around and shoot everybody. That would solve the problem. If everybody could just disappear. But the point is, emptiness doesn't mean an absolute thing apart from the relative world. Emptiness itself is the relative concept of the absolute, but it means that everything, including an idea of nirvana, including an experience, separated, distinctive experience of nirvana, is relative only. So, absolutely speaking, this is all nirvana, But relatively speaking, approaching this with wisdom rather than ignorance is different from approaching or being stuck in this based on ignorance, thinking you're not it, in other words. You follow me? Is that clear? It should be clear one time through. Then when you try to rethink it, it might be difficult, but it's okay. So Genla is definitely the reincarnation of Medicine Buddha. And definitely, I hereby pronounce him such. And I can do that confidently because he's doing the work that they want to see done. In the poem here that is translated from Tibetan, it says in Yutok's song, he says a lot of things about how he's this and that. And then he says, he wants to rain, or I forget, he wants to rain medicine on all beings. Although there are many Bodhisattva prayers like that. Bodhisattva actually prays, I want to be the medicine that everybody needs. So the actual pill, I want to be pills. The Nirmanakaya, body of emanation, is not only persons, seeming persons. It can also be planets, whole planets. If Obi-Wan Kenobi was a bodhisattva in the inconceivable liberation, or an emanation body person, Jedi master. But if that meant, if George had taken that to the level of where he was the Force, when he shuddered in the early Star Trek, or I forget which one, where the Death Star destroyed a planet and 7 billion people, the number 7 billion is funny, very prophetic. Lucas doesn't know what he's channeling. 7 billion people die, and it's a disturbance in the Force. But a bodhisattva can make another planet for them, have them land there quickly and carry on with their lessons. It isn't that you're saving, they can't save them still, because they can only save themselves by coming to an understanding. But it's an omnicompetent teacher. If they lose their planet and their physical, their coarse bodies, then a Buddha could make another planet, very similar, and land them. Just catch them on the planet. Here, okay, now get to work. Go on retreat with Menla. Be a doctor, heal some people, get busy. There's no escape. That's the key thing. And luckily, no need to escape, if you understand where you are. But very important to know there's no escape, in a certain sense, because, what is our problem? Our problem is, if we are unenlightened, and so many of you may be, I'm sure a lot of you are more enlightened than me, for sure, Genla sure is. But it's very clear to know that when you're unenlightened, what it means is, it doesn't mean you don't have a light in your head, or you can't see bright lights. It means that you have a distorted sense of yourself, that there's something in there that's the real you, that's separate from everything else, and different from everything else. And therefore, if you have an experience of being different from everything else, and everything else disappearing, you could easily misinterpret that as being, that's my real self. And think that your real self is a state apart from everything. And even what we call dualistic Buddhists, the Buddhists who think that nirvana is separate from samsara, which we call the individual, I call it, not to be disparaging, I call it the individual vehicle Buddhism, which in modern times now is mostly Theravada. But in ancient times, there were 18 different schools. And in China, they have some few of them still survive. And Tibet, they have a slightly different one than Theravada. But they're very similar to Theravada. So the Buddha even let people think that, but he totally warned that any kind of state of things disappearing is not nirvana. What are you doing? I keep running.
I'm doing my job, that's all.
Oh. Okay.
Facebook Live.
What?
Facebook Live.
Oh, I see. Hello, Facebook. They keep running around, and I'm wondering what they do. So therefore, not to worry. And then the other point is this. Even if Genla was a reincarnation, not only the communist, but, official. And he came in here in big pedigree. Here's my reincarnation certificate. I'm a famous Lama from many lives. If he did that, then what would it be our tendency to do, since we're kind of childish people? Oh, he will save me. Oh, he'll be my guru. Oh, just depend on him. Oh, yeah. then don't do. Then he'll be upset. Then the guru will say, oh yes, of course, if you gain some enlightenment, some knowledge from a teacher, you should be grateful and happy with the teacher and try to learn more if you find the teacher is reliable. But if you're depending on the teacher for your enlightenment, you're putting the wrong burden on the teacher, because you have to learn. You know, they call it Shenyan Tenso, the way of relying on the spiritual friend, literally, or the spiritual teacher. And the way of relying, the most important thing is realizing and understanding what the teacher is teaching. That's the most important thing. Not just going and fluffing on the teacher, oh, Guruji, save me, save me. That's, Kerala said that during the initiation. He said, too much guru dependency is not good. If you meet a group, a Buddhist group, let's say, or a Hindu group, any kind of group, where everybody is just slobbering over the teacher all the time, and then, of course, around such a teacher, there's all kind of infighting, and who's closer to the teacher, and who's advanced disciple. It's a tremendous bunch of BS going on, which I don't mean Buddhist studies. And that's even, and then if you find it, that's a bad group then. That means that teacher is not pushing the responsibility back on the student. Even Dalai Lama himself, you know, in a teaching I once was at a Tara initiation that he did in India. And in India, they're very into, you know, we're respecting the guru, you know. The word guru means heavy. It means heavy, literally like heavy. That's what guru means. It's a root word, root meaning in India, in Sanskrit, and in Hindi. And so they're ready to touch his feet. The Indians have wonderful gesture when they touch the feet, and they dust off your feet, Guruji, which are all beautiful. That's nice, worshiping, respecting the guru. That's a nice thing. It has a small part of relating to a teacher. It's a preliminary small part. The real part is doing the teaching and understanding it. And then becoming like the teacher. And so in that sense, if a teacher is self-confident, that's good, because it really wants you to be self-confident. The student is supposed to be self-confident. If you're going to try to become a sci-fi creature, which is a Buddha, which is a multi-empath of all beings, not having compassion fatigue, you have to have a strong ego, actually. Don't ever think that Buddhism is teaching you to have no ego. No, you're going to have a strong ego. But what a strong ego is one that is resilient. It realizes that it's a construct, that it's emptiness, and it's selfless. And therefore, it's a work of art. Do you follow? You make of yourself a work of art. You make a divine self. You make a Buddha self. You make a nurse self. You make a doctor self. You make someone to help someone teach themselves. But there's no fixed self that is absolutely what it is or ever was. You follow? You get that? So then, what I really wanted to share, I'm going to stop here, although this is my only time. That's why I hog up the time a little bit, and I apologize. Because this is my only thing, this particular time. And that is this. The first starting of the path, and many of you may be along the path, but it's always good to go back to the real beginning. The beginning of the path, after meeting the teaching, either through a teacher, through a book, through a Buddha, whatever it is. In the case of this weekend, it's through Menla that we're meeting. That's important. And having a sense of confidence in that teaching and teacher by seeing the good qualities of that teaching and teacher, that's also good. But then, the very first thing to meditate and practice is the importance of yourself, the value of yourself. You have been brought up in a culture, whether on the theistic side or the materialistic side of the culture, where you are not important, actually. And you're taught to think that's great. And you're supposed to be humble. And you're supposed to think that you're very limited. And you're not self-confident. And you even encouraged to despise yourself, actually. The theistic one, you're a sinner, right? I'm Adam and Eve. If you're a female, Eve is your model. Caused the sin, got tangled up with Kundalini serpent. Fed her an apple of happiness, and then got kicked out by the authoritarian weirdo out of the garden, Medicine Buddha garden, which is just a silly patriarchal myth. But we were educated to that. And then only someone else can save us because we're so worthless. And Protestantism is that. Calvinism, oh my God, those Swiss people, they were in that heavenly mountains, and they were told that someone was saved ahead of being born, and others, no matter what they did, were finished. So they might as well just work in the watch factory. So the default thing that you're educated in, and then the scientists then, oh, they're liberating you from that, but you're like 15 cents of cheap chemicals in a bag of water. And you don't really exist. And when you die, then you will revert to your true consciousness, which is a state of non-existence. So you're not particularly valuable either. Some genes came together in the back seat of a Cadillac down by the levee on a Saturday night, and then you suddenly have a body and you think you're important and you're American or whatever you are, and a male or female, and you're just this 15 cents worth of cheap chemicals to be pushed around by oligarchs and scientists. So, whereas you are not, you yourself are a continuum from an infinite, beginningless life. There's no, well, where did it all come from? That's the big question. Buddha says it comes from ignorance, right? That means it doesn't really come at all in one level. On the relative level, it means it's always been there. So you have an infinite continuum of life. And then now you've become human. You're not living in hell. You're not living in the preta realm of the hungry spirit. You're not living like an animal on a breed farm or, what do they call it, those horrible places, food farm. You're not a titan like a macho, fighting and killing all the time. And you're an asura, and you're not a deity like lounging in a 500-year jacuzzi and doing nothing, being ignorant of your responsibility in relation to others. And so you are a human being. And you are not really considering yourself. If we had a billionaire in the room, we probably don't have a billionaire. I don't mean to be rude in case someone is, but we probably don't have a billionaire in the room. Why? Because billionaire, every minute is so important. They have to stay like stuck. I just lost 15 million. Like, their time is too precious because everything's measured in money. So it's very, very precious. So they wouldn't have time to sit here and try to think about the purpose of the billion or of life, mostly. It wouldn't. They just take some answer. And in the Protestant ethic of Max Weber, the sociologist, they think that having the billion kind of proves that God likes them, so they're going to be saved after they die. There's a little element like that. But the church tells them that no matter how many billions you have, if you're a bad guy, it won't happen. But they don't listen to that. They just think, I got a billion, and then they say, shut up, here, I'll give you 10 churches, I'll build 10 churches for you. Don't tell me anything like that. They say. So, but the point is this, that billionaire at least thinks every minute of their time is valuable. But what do we do with our spare time? How valuable do we think we really are? Do we really focus on our sadhana, on our mantra, on our whatever, practice, our meditation? Or do we really make that the supreme priority of our life by considering ourselves to be at an evolutionary moment from a beginningless time where we have moved through tremendous ethics, generosity, patience? You're beautiful, you're all beautiful people. That means you were very patient in a previous life. Anybody who's really ugly in this life or very angry in a previous life, and if you're wealthy in this life, you were generous in a previous life. And if you're human, you were ethical in a previous life. And if you're intelligent, you cultivated wisdom of selflessness in a previous life. And if you can concentrate well on what you do, you meditated in a previous life. And if you're creative and have high energy to do beautiful and creative things, you practice the transcendence of creativity and creative effort in previous life. And so you have this moment. And even if you're elderly and you don't have that many moments, maybe, although now that you've been initiated into long life, you could stay 100 or 2 years if you feel like it, if you need to, if you're going to work at it. But everyone is precious. I did mildly chide Eckhart Tolle, my dear friend, about this moment business, because the moment depends on what the non-moment is, to have a sense of what the moment is. If you leave people with the materialist ideology intact, that what they really are is nothing, because the minute they die, they have no consciousness, and there's no future continuum of their individual soul existence, so to speak. if you to convince them of that, then their moment is a sort of complete just disconnect from everything. And it gives them a palliative of no less worry, and it's very powerful, it gives them a buzz. So that's a nice thing, and if someone's too neurotically worried about everything, afraid they're going to go to hell or whatever it is, or be eaten by a tick, then, and they're having a hard time, then it's nice to say just be in the moment. But it's still a dead zone, the moment. And it's still reinforcing that idea that ultimately extinction is what I'm aiming for. And it's cutting off love and compassion. So you have to first, in addition to the power of now, you have to have the power of infinity, the power of every time, the power of everywhere. Because then you realize that your moment is the cause, is the seed of Buddhahood, or endless wandering meaninglessly in unpleasant life forms. So the moment becomes a really powerful thing to give yourself to, but it's within a causal process. It's within ever-increasing connectivity, the opposite of a moment of disconnect. It's a moment of infinite connect. And that gives you tremendous energy to challenge your own habitual, addictive, and they won't even translate klesha as they translate affliction. But your affliction means the suffering itself, not the cause of suffering. So addiction is perfect, because when you get really mad, it makes you feel good for a short distance, because you got mad because you were feeling oppressed. So then, you feel powerful for it, but then you get exhausted in 2 minutes, and if you're dealing with a kung fu master, you get all beaten up, because you get all disoriented by getting mad. But, so it's not, it fools you into thinking, though, it's going to make you feel good. Lust, hate, or even sort of closing yourself off, delusion or depression or ignorance. They kind of seem like ignorance is bliss, we hear people say. So it makes you, that's what addiction is. Addiction is something that you think it's helping and it's actually hurting. You follow? But it becomes addictive when you get used to that. Although it makes you worse and worse. So we all say, oh, I know someone who's probably ran away from this room, who's like adjusting the things and then he runs away, who says, oh, I'm going to quit smoking later. Oh, I know it's killing me. I know it's so bad. Oh, it ruins my concentration. Oh, yeah. And I'm going to do something. Oh, don't bug me. I'm going to do something. Because why? Because they don't care for themselves is why. We are educated. Now, this is how you meditate Buddhist things. You see, Buddha does not ask for blind faith. He doesn't want blind faith in gurus. He doesn't want blind faith in himself. He doesn't even want blind faith in anything he says. He wants confidence and trust when people begin to experience something where they get some result. That's what he wants. And so he wants people to get a realistic view of the world and of themselves, and then people will really pull themselves together. Because then you have, it's like you got angry many times. In my life, I got angry lots of times, lost my temper. And then after years, then whatever I did, it caused a lot of bad echoes and results. It had to be fixed laboriously later. And so therefore that moment of, it was really self-destructive already at the time. I didn't know. I was feeling whatever. But actually you learn, and then you still feel that powerful inner impulse. But then you have enough experience amassed of the negative consequences that you control it. And that comes up and helps you control it. So if you realize you earned your own life, you meditate, go backwards in meditation, and you think, go back to your birth, do Stan Grof's yoga and hyperventilate, and then remember yourself coming down the birth canal, having your head squeezed or whatever, or being grabbed by forceps if it was a cesarean, and having something squeezed and jerked and pulled, and it's a very painful, difficult thing. But then you go before that. You can go and you can come up with previous life. There are people, skilled therapists who can help you do it. And also it's a meditation not that difficult in Buddhism. And when you do that, and you realize you've been all these other sorts of things, then you realize, wow, I really became this multi-optional being, a being that's ready to be deprogrammed and reprogrammed. So then it becomes really important to be realistic, because I want to make sure that I program myself to be able to be more, go ever more positive. And that's the really important thing to do in life, with each moment, is to make it just, and then this is the most beautiful thing. In the Samadhi Raja Sutra, they say, who knows cause and effect, who looks carefully at cause and effect, that person comes to know emptiness. Voidness, emptiness, or freedom, you can even translate emptiness. That person comes to know freedom. Who comes to know freedom, emptiness, that person becomes Payu in Tibetan, Apramata, becomes carefully mindful of the most minute things, because every minute thing becomes massively important. That's the opposite of disappearing, isn't it? When you know emptiness, it means you know relativity. When you know relativity, it means you're totally there in relativity. That's what your emptiness is. And therefore, if there's something a little off, fixing it becomes everything. If it's an internal, if there's something imbalanced there, fixing it becomes everything. So your full concentration is brought to bear on the moment, on yourself in the moment, to make it positive, though. Not just, I'm in the moment and it's all there for nothing, and so I don't have to worry about it. Worrying itself could be, if you're worrying just off spinning in some place, in some network of concepts, is not helpful. But worry by being behind, focusing concentratedly on making this the best possible moment. That's the kind of moment to moment that you want to have. And to do that, you have to value yourself. Menla has said, during the initiation, he said at least 10 times, you have to be self-confident. And in all of these books, it's about you have to have the confidence to do that. He's been dealing with Westerners. And they're not confident. And therefore they make machines like, I have a Tesla, I have a Maserati, to sort of give themselves a sense of power, because they feel very insecure. So our culture indoctrinates us to feel that we are worthless, actually. And the materialists are no better. They say, oh no, those religious people, they're just trying to freak you out to get donations to the church and like send you to the Inquisition or whatever, and we're liberating you. But then, what are they liberating you? Well, we're liberating you because you're nothing. You don't have to worry. If that was so, fine. They should just blow up the planet. Send in the Death Star. And we'll all vaporize and we'll be extinguished. No struggle to meditate and do nirvana. Just shoot them. Shoot us all ahead of time. But that, unfortunately, won't work. You trash the bodies, and your subtle mind, which normally is imprisoned or is safe in a little jewel box that Menla told you about, of a white and red softball or baseball, a little white and red little jewel casket, and in there's this little blue spiritual gene, this little blue buzzing humming thing is inside there, and when you die, this thing falls apart. And then, if you know how, you send it upward to one of the upper rebirths or whatever, or whichever you do, but better is human one. And therefore your main job in life is to become self-aware, to find that structure, to find that energy at the deepest center of the heart, and then to make that enfold your whole body and everything in the world. And you turn blue then. That's your job. And you can achieve that. And then the Tibetan thing. Now, I was going to do the 12 things, but maybe I used up all the time. I don't know. You want to talk, you talk. But otherwise, I want to do the 10 things. You want to do them together, or you want to do them? You want me to do them? I wanted to do them. I do. I have to admit. And there are these 10 things that are so cool. About, and I'll try not to complain about translation. I'm always correcting translation stuff. So, where is it? There it is. So, after the invocational prayers, the Kechu, Chutam. So this is, once you know how precious you are, in case you do, then if you really know that, then you would change your whole priorities in life. your priority would always be what you can do to evolve consciously. Because you are an evolving creature who is constantly changing. And as Wittgenstein once said, the engine of, he used it a little different, but I'm adapting it. The engine of evolution never idles. So you don't just stay the same just if you don't do anything. You either get worse or you get better. And then you want to really get lots better before you come to an end of this life, which will happen. Unfortunately, we will, this wetware will get sick of it. And then you encounter not only the foundational teaching of loving yourself. That's why people become monks and nuns, by the way. They don't become monks and nuns because they're discouraged about life. On the contrary. The reason and the word monk and nun is a Western Christian word, so I say mendicants. The reason they become male or female mendicants, bhikshus or bhikshunis. The reason they become that is because in an elaborated society, the society supports someone who develops a motivation to evolve to the maximum that they can in their human life. In other words, to use their human body, mind, soul, spirit, language, their whole equipment that they have evolved into by their own tremendous effort over millions of lifetimes. And you've been humans, of course, many times before, but this time you've encountered this teaching. And so it's so important to use your special intelligence to evolve in a maximal way. And it's very frightening to think that you are going to be involved in relativity forever, and you're going to keep running into all the same people, and something you got rid of was a danger, you're going to run into it again. And it's all can be very worrisome. And that's why you have to meditate that the default reality is benevolent, it's good. There's Samantabhadra, it's good to sample, it's totally good, the default reality. It's not this evil thing that you're indoctrinated, neither nothing nor a bad thing that you're indoctrinated to think. And then, when you do that, you then look for methods. And then when you look for methods, you find the great vehicle. Soon, you find the individual vehicle, because you are an individual, and you take pity on yourself and shift your priorities, and then you might become, if you were in a society where they supported people who dropped out of everything, and they thought they were the most important and precious people because they dropped out of all the normal productivities and aggressions and self-assertions of ordinary society, and they were looking for the high value of life, the deepest inner value and outer value of life as a mendicant, bhikshu or bhikshuni. Then the society supports them. But we live in a society where people are not valued like that, and they won't be supported. So we can't do that. So you become that kind of renunciant, and that's what I'm saying, out of consideration for yourself. I'm so precious. Why would I waste my time? Like making money just to be able to eat or have a house. That's a waste of time. Somebody can give me a place to be, shelter and food. And I promise that I only eat one meal a day to make it easy for them. Well, it might be a big one before lunch, but I only eat one meal a day. So it's not a despair. Buddhists are not despair. They are doing that because they feel, I'm going to use this fabulous life fantastically. It's more difficult for us in this society where we are because we have to take care of ourselves. But no, they won't take care of mendicants, really. But homeless people, they won't really help them to learn and teach. Everyone should have Bernie would. Everyone would be on scholarship lifelong. Buckminster Fuller would. Everyone should be on scholarship lifelong because education is the highest thing a human being can do. They say training, but it is education too. Same. The word is the same, adishiksha. And then they would run into the Utox teaching. And it has these, and especially his highest one. It has 12 special virtues. It brings blessings quickly. That's the first thing. Do you all feel blessed here at Menla?
Yes.
Spending time with Menla? Does everyone feel blessed?
Yes.
Okay, you had quick blessings, just a couple of days. I'm only here to annoy you part of the time. To challenge you. And it's easy to accomplish. And he makes it seem easy. He does. It's true. And it's simple and convenient. It's simple and convenient. It's very simple. Just realize that medicine Buddha is here. and everything is fine. And it's comprehensive. It doesn't leave anything out that you have to go find it out to do postgraduate. You know? It's comprehensive, includes all the essential points. It's connected with medicine. That's really amazing. My original guru, Gila, must have known that when I was a young mendicant. He insisted I study medicine. I totally didn't want to. But you know, and I went to all good schools here, although my family is, you know, some generations ago they were wealthy families on the two sides, but now they printed it all away, which is lucky for me because I had to work for things, you know. I couldn't just sit back and be spoiled, you know, like a spoiled brat. You know. Well, I am a bit spoiled, but not that spoiled. So, but then all these schools, you know, Phillips Exeter, you know, this and that, Harvard, I've been all these great schools, and studied what they asked you to study as well as, but not too well, but pretty well. And you know, I had no idea what my kidney was doing. Hello, what are you doing on there? I heard you can have a kidney punch, but I didn't even know what it looked like, where it was. I wasn't a pre-med. I did liver, heart, lung. Only from the Tibetan medicine do they make a thing where anyone can know what's going on inside their body. Not necessarily the subtle nervous system, the chakra level, which is a higher level, but the ordinary, pancreas and everything. You know, what are they doing? How many people really, do you talk to your kidney? Do you listen to your kidney? I know someone whose different body parts talk to them in certain states and made them shape up with smoking, different things. I actually know someone whose body said, I don't want any more of that. And then, oh, okay.
That happens.
So the people who do harmful things to themselves due to harmful addictions are not listening to their body. So, okay, it's connected with medicine. So I think that's really great from the beginning. I received this even then, and I didn't really do it. I didn't have time. I was so, whatever, I don't know, whatever want me to do everything. I'm too crazy. Its sequence of practice is clear. But the sequence of practice, first of all, you have to be sure how valuable you are as an ordinary human being. Then you won't waste your time of your life. You know, we have this expression, passing time, you know, hanging out, you know, this kind of thing. You would never do that because every moment is a taste of Buddhahood if it's a little better and for others as well as yourself. It's non-sectarian in its doctrine. That's right. And non-sectarian includes, I was saying to you at an earlier talk that Buddhism is science. And its education is scientific based because it's based on understanding. Faith, there's a confident faith or trust is developed through experience with reasons, but not blind faith, right? That's considered harmful to you. It cripples you. If you believe something for no reason, then you'll believe anything, and you'll be dependent on all kinds of different people. So it's an education, And but also Buddhism is a religion. You can't say. There are those who in the ancient time, in Buddha's own society, in Yutok Yondengomu society, in Yutok senior and junior Tsongkhapa society, it was mostly agricultural, and relatively few people were educated. Even relatively few people were literate. They had big cities, but the mass of people lived in the villages and so on. And so for those people who were not educated, it was maybe more of a religion than a science, in the sense that they believed on the basis of their experience, because they had met great teachers, they had met kind people, they had met saintly people, they'd seen magical things probably too, and their imaginations had been lifted by cultural things, stories and plays and dramas and festivals and things like that, rituals. So they believed what they were doing was good, but they didn't think in that life that they would be able to fully understand it. And so for them, it was a religion, by definition of, to having confidence in something. And so non-sectarian here is probably meant in the context of within Buddhism and within Tibet. You have Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, Gelug, but in the old days you had Shije, Kadam, and other things. So that means that, but also it extends to Burmbos, non-Buddhists. It extends to Christians. Ultimately, Buddhist countries that take Buddhism seriously have not really persecuted in history other religions within their bounds, but scientifically they have argued with unrealistic worldviews, maybe, but not, here he comes, the man who doesn't listen to his lungs. Hiding there. I'm sorry. So non-sectarian ultimately, in Shambhala, in the Buddhist New Age that will come in about 400 years supposedly, they say, all religions will be fine, but no intolerant religions. No religions that want to destroy the other religion or force people to follow their religion. They will not survive. That ideology of convert others by force or whatever will not happen. So all religions, but the tolerant versions of those religions that allow science also. And in a way, science is kind of religion. So that's number 7. 8, it's of an appropriate or convenient length. And that they take seriously because if you really do these sadhanas, if you really want to meditate yourself as this, or you want to really learn the details of being in the mandala of immortal life, of long life, immortality, a mandala of Amitayur, the infinite life Buddha, etc., then these are very simple. Like the initiation Gela did in a few hours, could go on for days in some other versions. Very elaborate and costumes and long explanations and a lot of things. And it was very, very simple, actually. And it's timely. It's always timely. There's no time, therefore, it's always the time. Right? If not now, when type of thing. It's capable of taming anyone. Yeah, I wanted to explain that term taming. I'm glad that the translator bravely wrote taming. The word means dul, to tame, or vinaya, and vinaya. But what that actually means is educating. And being educated is taming. And why is an uneducated person usually, unless in previous lives, not tamed? Because when one is driven by the absolute ego sense, by ego addiction, of feeling that that myself is absolute and everything else is not absolute, then one is liable to cause trouble in relating to beings. And one is therefore like a wild animal. Just, wants to eat something, consume what is in front. The suffering of animals is called chigla, chiksa, anyonya bhakshana in Sanskrit, meaning one eating another, just consuming what is in front of you. And so that's a wild animal. So tame means that sense of self is relativized in a being that is more tame. And it's not that someone else can dominate them and tame them, although others harmed people who became more nonviolent because they became more vulnerable. But one's own mind can control oneself. One has true self-restraint. One has true self-creativity, to focus on what is important. That's to be tamed. So educated, you could translate as educated. But taming is not wrong, of course. It's a set of instructions without equal, well, of course, because it has all the previous 10 wonderful virtues, and condenses the ultimate meaning and all of the essential points of the Buddha's teaching. This is really important, this one. Because, in other words, this teaching, this is the highest teaching of Yutong. Because the higher, although I don't even like the word higher, actually. Usually in Sanskrit, they use a word called anuttara. And lana mepa in the Tibetan. And the Tibetans, this shows you where Tibetans improved on Indian culture. In their version of Buddhism, they actually improved. The word guru means heavy. And India was, in recent history, the last 2,500 years, at least as far as we know, historical record, it was a very authoritarian, patriarchal country and culture. And so dad was heavy on the family. King or minister was heavy on dad. Then the king was heavy on the minister. Then the Vedic god was heavy on the king. So it was like one heavy thing weighing down another like a pyramid. That's what's called authoritarian culture, right? But the Tibetans did not translate guru using the rude word for heavy. Probably because Tibetans were too individualistic, a bunch of nomads, and they didn't want anybody sitting on top of their head. They're like wild. Tibetans are very energetic. They're like yaks, you know. Yaks are never domesticated. Even your tamest yak, when the wild yak shows up, then they'll run off with the wild yak. The yak growers told me that. So they have to tie them up because they want to rejoin the wild yak. They're not just chewing their cud yak. Everything. Depends on like that. So, so they translated heavy, higher, unexcelled. So, and also the highest tantra, people go the highest tantra, but they translated the word in Indian. There was the Indian word was good, anuttara, unexcelled. There's nothing past it. But it isn't necessarily higher. I like to say, they made a model of the guru like a tar baby. You know tar baby? Tar baby, you when you try to do something with it, move it around, you get stuck on it. So you can't get past it. It isn't like it's higher above you. It's like it encompasses you. And so the higher teachings, so-called higher teachings, are the ones that embrace all the teachings. You follow me? They have all the teachings in them. So, you know, Ati Yoga, or with Nyingma way of saying, or unexcelled Yoga Tantra, contains all bhikshunas, it contains all Mahayana, it contains all of the teachings. Emptiness, compassion, it contains all of it. And that's really important because that's where non-sectarian. If you want to know when people are sectarian, you go to their place and they tell you, we're the only ones who have the teaching you really need. Yeah. Don't bother to go anywhere else. One-stop shopping here in our cult. You have this Lama, you have this teaching, you don't need any other teaching. Don't go get it, don't listen to anybody else. Just here you are. I used to tell students in my classes, if you find that, say, oh, thank you so much. Goodbye. Yeah. When you know it's non-sectarian, it's where it's the Buddha's vision, you know, where you see, the enlightened person sees, Yutok himself, sees everyone trying to head in the right direction. And there are better and worse things for different people, and therefore there's infinite varieties of teachings. Buddha was a dialogical teacher. He taught according to who he was talking with. Not just something dogma that everyone, a doctrine that everyone had to accept. So that's the real non-sectarian thing. And there are, sadly, like Burma nowadays, Sri Lanka, there are a few Buddhists who get too fanatical about their version of it and they attack other people. That's really bad. So tolerance is totally key, because an understanding that you indoctrinate someone into is not their own understanding, and therefore it will be weak in their mind, and therefore will not really help them. The only understanding that will help them is the one that they had to struggle their way to gaining the thing. And so the teacher then tries to open the door for them to think about it, give them evidence, give them experience, give them methods of experience, but then they have to understand. So it condenses the ultimate meaning, all the essential points of the Buddha's teachings. So those are those 12 special things of the Vajrayana teaching. That's my bad karma. Coming out. Okay? Lost you. Please, again, anything I said that was no good, please tell me. Or anything you want to discuss more that I mentioned.
Any questions?
You all have questions. You can also ask Galen any question about anything he's been teaching. That's my contribution.
I have one question that you both can answer.
Yes?
About controlling the Bantu.
Microphone.
I'm sorry. Controlling the Bantu.
Microphone. Where's our mic? His microphone is not on.
Controlling the Bantu.
Closer to you. It's on.
Controlling the
Oh,
Bantu.
good. Yes. What story?
Controlling Bardo.
Controlling the Bardo.
Controlling the bardo?
Yeah. Yes.
No
Yes.
one can control the bardo.
I asked Genla before about it, and he said to ask tonight.
I'm sorry?
About controlling the Bardo state.
Your question is, how do you control the bardo?
Yes.
That's the question? Well, you want to answer that, Kayla?
Yeah.
Oh, you're trying.
Okay. So bardo, normally we have 6 different kinds of bardos, you know. So our this life state, this is a one bardo. Then we go to sleep, deep sleep state, also it's a bardo. And then dream state is a bardo. And then there's this samadhi bardo, you know, the deep meditation state bardo.
6 bardos.
And then one is the afterlife, when we are dead. So that when we are dead, afterlife bardo is very similar to dream bardo. So what we do with the dream yoga is, you know, normally what happens is, the dream is controlling us. We don't have freedom what to do, what we want to do, but somebody is controlling us, you know. Somebody telling us to drive the car, somebody telling us to do the job, somebody is, you know, asking us to do the exam, you know, take the bus and falling down and to catch the, you know, train or this and that. So it seems like somebody else is organizing all our dreams, and then we get lost and we get busy and stressed and this and that, okay? And so it means the dream is controlling us, so we lose that control. We can't control the dream. And that's why in dream yoga it's very important to have lucid dreaming. Once you become lucid, once you know you are dreaming, and then everything changes, everything opposite, okay? And then you don't run after the bus, you order the bus come to you, okay? So everything completely changed, and you can control the dream completely how you want. You know, you see a giant city in your dream, if you don't want to see, you just say disappear, and the entire city will disappear in one instant. You understand? So that's like a power of our mind, because everything is projected by our mind, and if you order from here, everything happens that way. For that we need like a very strong self-confidence. But if you are able to, you become lucid and you do that, it happens how you want, how you order, okay? So if you are very good with dream yoga, actually if you do dream yoga like this, normally about 30 times, 30 times it means in your life, whole life, 30 times of lucid dreaming, and then you control your dream how you want, okay? 30 times. Then it means you are ready for bardo, the afterlife.
That's great.
And bardo is again the same, you know, there are many beings, and we see trees, and we see cities, and cars, you know, traffic. It's very similar like our dream, but normally, because, there are 2 things. One, we don't accept that we are dead. So that's why we believe in that reality. We still think we are in a reality. And number 2 is we completely will get lost in that dimension, you know, believing that dualistic view and, you know, running and doing and all these things. But if you become lucid that moment, you know you are already dead, and you know that is a bardo dimension, and you know everything manifesting is somehow also it's your own projection, and then you can start to control. So that's why some Tibetan masters, they control that bardo and they choose where they are coming back. You choose your, next life parents, the place, and this and that, and you can come back. So if you cannot control, of course, then bardo is controlling you. So you can say also karma is controlling you, and then probably you'll go to the wrong place.
Can I lodge you to Shena? Me the Dongre Kurang Jalo Yoga Chet, the Yellow Nanga tells a wonderful story about that I was encouraging to tell, but he wants me to tell. I heard from him. A wonderful story where a man is having a recurring dream that is very upsetting to him because he's being pursued by a really vicious ogre in the dream, like a cannibal ogre. Every time he goes to sleep, wakes up all sweating and terrified and out of breath because he's running away from this vicious ogre that's been attacking him in the dream. So then he goes to the Lama and says, like, what do I do about that ogre in the dream? And the guy says, well, you just have to be brave and confront it. You have to realize the projection of the mind, you confront it, And then, maybe something happened, you keep running away, it'll never work. So then he tries to do that, and then finally one day, he's falling asleep, he's dreaming, and then the ogre is coming after him, and then he remembers in the dream the Lama saying that. So then he turns and faces them, and turns to the ogre and says, "Why are you chasing me?" And the ogre says, "I don't know, it's your dream." When did you hear that, Yala? Who told you that one?
My teacher,
Your teacher? Which teacher?
the Anila, the nun.
Oh, the nun?
Yeah.
So who was that nun? I've forgotten. I'm sorry. Can you tell me again? Who was that nun?
My nun teacher, she was a disciple of Annie Lochin.
Annie Lochen,
Annie Lochin, yes.
who lived in Remkong
No, Central Tibet.
in Central Tibet.
She was the main female lama for this Shuksep monastery.
Who Shuksep? Oh, Shuksep Lama. Oh, yeah, Central Tibet. Yeah, I know the Shuksep Lama.
Shuksep nunnery used to be the biggest nunnery in Tibet. But my teacher, she was a yogini. She had dreadlock. She looks very strong, muscles. She looks like a man, with very long hair, and she was very, very powerful.
How old was she when you first met her?
No, I didn't meet my teacher's teacher. I met my teacher, the nun.
I see.
And then my teacher, she was trained in this with her teacher.
I see.
And the story is like this. When my teacher's mother was pregnant with my teacher, and then there are many Tibetan lamas, they went to their family. They said, "Oh, this baby is a special baby. This baby will be a special baby, and he will be a reincarnation of their monastery." And these 3 monasteries, the monks, they went to their family. And this one monastery says, "Oh, he will be the reincarnation of our lama." The second one says, "Oh, he will be reincarnation of our lama." Third one says, "Oh, he will be reincarnation of our lama." Okay? And then she was born. And then they said, "Uh-oh."
She was born?
Yeah,
Oh, it was a female, right?
because they're expecting
Male, right?
a
right.
male, a boy, little boy.
I know, so they got lucky.
And then they said, "Uh-oh." And the first one says, no, our lama must be a boy. So they left, and then the second monastery also, they said, "Our lama reincarnation must be a boy. A girl lama, it's something bad, And then the third monastery says, the previous lama, he wrote a very precise prophecy. So the family and the dates and everything is perfectly matched. And they said, "We don't care if she's a boy or girl, this is our lama's reincarnation." And then they invited her later to their monastery, but then all monks are complaining. They said, "Why our reincarnation is a girl, Whole monastery, they're all male monks, and they start to complain. But then one old monk, he had a good idea. He said, "Okay, so she must be the reincarnation because she is it's perfect, matches the prophecy, the letter, from the previous lama." But then this old lama says, "Okay, we will choose another one too. The next one will be a boy." So they had to find another one, and then they enthroned my teacher. She had her throne, and then the other boy another throne. So they enthroned together
Oh,
the reincarnation, one boy and one girl.
oh.
And then, in any case, that monastery, there are many complaints about this girl, reincarnation, and this and that. And then her family took her back from the monastery. And then the family said, "Okay, it's better you go to a nunnery, you should receive education." So the family took her to the nunnery, and then she met her first teacher. Yeah.
I see.
And her teacher was the dreadlock, very, very powerful. She looks sweet and scary together, very, very powerful. And then her teacher said, "I know you are a reincarnation. You are a very top lama reincarnation, but I can understand, you are rejected by all monasteries and monks and these things. She said, don't worry, here you are on the right place. And you study with me and, learn here and practice. And then she stayed there. And then she...
So what was his name, the teacher?
Ani Lochin.
Oh,
Oh, but her teacher was a man, right?
No. The
Oh,
Ani
I see, okay,
Ani
Anilochin.
Lochin, yeah.
I see, okay.
She was the abbot of nunnery.
I see, okay.
Yeah. Ani
Okay.
Lochin. And then my teacher stayed there, and then later she became her personal attendant. And so they are very close, And so my teacher, she didn't study much because she was always helping teacher, all these things, doing things. And then one day, her teacher said, now you are ready for meditation. Now you are ready for meditation. And then she said, oh, Master, I don't think I'm ready for meditation. I have to learn more. And she said, I'm giving a very important, the 6 yoga teachings, 6 yogas. And her teacher said that there are many people, they're asking me to give this teaching, and I didn't give to them because I can see they're not ready. And then she said, I know you are ready, why you are refusing, my teaching and practices. And then my teacher said she was a little bit scared, because her teacher was kind of angry. And then she said, okay, I'll do 6 yoga retreat. So then she received empowerment and instructions and teachings and everything. And then her teacher said, now you have to stay in a cave for many months. And my teacher was a little bit shocked because she didn't expect. She had to go to a cave, she was very young. She was a teenager. And then she thought that was too hard, but teacher said, you have to go. And then she said, I don't know, where is this cave, And her teacher said, don't worry, I will ask some other nuns and they will bring to you the cave and you have to stay in that cave. And so she had little food and, her robes, the nun robes, and then she had one of these, the meditation belt. This is actually from my teacher, so she made one for her, she gave to her, and then my teacher made this for me. And and then my teacher, she stayed in that cave. She said when she reached this cave, she thought, oh, I'm in trouble. Because the cave is in the north side of the mountain and so cold, There's no sun and very cold and humid.
So the teacher chose that cave on purpose?
Yes. Teacher, she knew there was a very, very bad cave. She said it was very big and kind of dark and humid and cold. And then she stayed there. First night, she said she couldn't sleep. She was scared, to hearing the birds and the bats flying around this. And the next day, she started to think. She said first, a week, she was just working with her mind. She started to doubt in her teacher. She was angry, She said, why should I stay here? Oh, I will get sick and I will die. And this. She had many, many mental issues, And then she thought, okay, I want to escape. I can't stay in this cave, I want to escape. And then she thought, okay, I was rejected by monasteries. If I escape, I finally found my teacher, but if I escape from this teacher, maybe I will not find another good teacher, And I can't see her anymore. And so I think she had many emotional issues. And then one day she thought, okay, I'm here already 7 days. I didn't die. And still, okay, I have some food, this and that. Then she said, no, why I don't meditate, She changed her thought, and she started to meditate. So she stayed there, and then she had some experiences, meditation experiences.
Quickly.
Yeah, quite fast, yeah. She had experiences, she had this tummo, the fire experiences, and very blissful, this and that. And then she said she really liked it.
She really needs that with no heating system in the
Yeah,
cave.
exactly, yeah. She really needed that. She said it was very fast. And then she did the dream yoga, she did the illusory body, magic body yoga,
Oh, thank you. Magic.
Dream yoga, clear light yoga. She did all 6 yogas in that cave. So she stayed for 6 months. And then her teacher sent some nuns to go there, and they said she should go back to the nunnery. My teacher said, no, I want to stay here. She said, this is a perfect meditation place, and her meditation is working so well. And she said, I want to stay here. But her teacher said, no, you can't stay, you have to go back. So she went back to the nunnery, and then her teacher said, no, she became a qualified yogini. You know, she did 6 yogas, and she became officially a yogini. And then she did many other retreats, but she had many, very good experiences, you know, very, very good experiences. And her dreams, she said each night her dream is completely lucid, and she could choose where she needs to go. Okay, for example, sometimes she goes out for begging the food, you know, to go to the village, and she knew exactly which family will give the better food. And which families they have dogs, you know, mastiff dogs. It can be dangerous, right? So in Tibet, you know, the mastiff, the dogs are very big and very dangerous. So each time when she goes to sleep in the dream, she reads her future and everything. And the next day she knows it, you know. And then also the people's sickness, people are dying, and medicine, these things. She had a really very, very special power, you know. She knew people, especially with dream yoga. Yeah, she was kind of really like omniscient. Yeah, she told us that, she was doing the time traveling.
Doing the what?
Time traveling.
Oh, yeah.
To seeing the past and the future. It seems she really enjoyed the dream yoga. And then, of course, she had also very strong this Tummo yoga and so on. And since then, she never slept inside a house or room. She always stayed outside, you know. In the winter in Tibet, like, can be very cold, minus 20 and 30. Minus 20, 30, she just stays in the snow in the night, you know. She sits there and put this meditation belt, and then she falls asleep, that's it. And then she also, you know, traveling with her friends and this. Yeah, sometimes she said many times she had kind of conflict with her non-friends too, you know. Because the non-friends and few of her friends, they're very kind of analytic. And they're saying, oh, we have to go to, you know, that village, there's some rich families, they will give us better food and this and that. But she knows these things in the dream. In the dream, she goes there, they don't get anything, and the dog was chasing after them, okay? And she says, next day, she says, we don't go to that village because even the rich people, they don't give us good food, and they have very big dogs, and they will chase us. And it's better we go to this one, but they didn't listen to her, you know? And then she said, okay, if you don't believe me, we will go, we don't get the food, we will be chased by the mastiff. By the dogs. And then her friend says, oh, no, dogs come, no problem. And they went there. Exactly happened what she said.
What happened?
They didn't get the food.
Yeah, as
and
she
her
said.
friends, they had sticks for the dogs, but they said dogs are very big. The rich families' dogs
they can deal
are
with the
huge.
leopard.
Yeah, they're chasing after them. And evening they come back to the cave and no food at all.
Terrible.
So it was very funny
Did
because...
you meet her at the cave is that where you found her when you studied
No,
with
that's
her?
much later. This is her story.
Before
Before the Chinese
you
culture.
didn't go to the cave yourself,
Yeah.
that one.
Yes. No, I went to another cave.
A different, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, she was very, very powerful, but then she decided to stay outside. So she never slept in a room, in a house, and in the caves or outside and this. And then one day she said she had this dream vision that, the Chinese armies are coming and invasion and all these things. And so she told some of her friends, they said, oh, you are hallucinating, blah, 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 many things. They didn't listen to her. And then one day she knew there are this Chinese or Tibetan armies, they're coming to get her, they're arresting all masters. And then she checked in her dream what happens if she goes to the prison, if she escapes. She said she had two choices. If she escapes, she was okay because then she knows where to escape and then they can catch him, catch her. But then if they arrest her, she could help many people because many people are suffering in prison. She said, okay, I'll wait for them and they will arrest me and I go to the prison. So it's very funny. These are all her dream journeys. She see everything, the future, and then somehow even it's a bad experience, she had to accept it. And then they arrested her, and then they put her in a very special room. She said when after many years, that's first time she entered in a room, and that was kind of very dark. And then she said she saw that the roof was kind of a little bit shiny in the dark. She thought that a little bit strange, and she was sitting there. And then after a while, the roof was leaking. And then the water is coming more and more, so then she knocked the door, and one of these policemen came and he said, what? And she said, the water is leaking. And he opened the door, and she went out, and the roof was collapsed. So actually that room was made of ice. So they put prisoners there in the night and they die because it's too cold. But she had this heat, tumo heat, she melted the roof. So she destroyed actually this ice room. It means she saved many lives. She melted the roof and it was collapsed, And then they discovered she has some, how do you say? She has some unusual power, How do you call it? Paranormal?
Yeah, paranormal, supernormal.
Yeah. She has some unusual power, and police discovered, and they are checking her. And they knew she has a special heat, you can even sense it. And then what happened is they changed her room. Of course, they put her in a normal room. And then she said every evening the police or the prison guards, they bring their water in the water bucket and put in her room. In the evening and the morning they bring it back. Because if they put the water in her room, it doesn't freeze. In Tibet it's so cold in the winter. Even inside the room, the water gets freeze, and next day you have to break the ice, And they discovered she has a special heat, so they put that water...
She heated the water.
Yes. And the water never gets to freeze. But then it's like the rumor spread it, in prison, and they said, oh, there's a nun, she has a magic power, and she melted their ice room, and she keep warm the water and all these things, the rumor. And then it seems one of the prison guardian was very angry. Maybe he was the head of this. He said, oh, we are communists. We don't believe in these things, blah, blah, blah. And he asked people to check what she's doing. And then later they discovered that she's not sleeping, She's just sitting. And she sits and falls asleep, and then, she has this heat and this, and then he sent the other prison guards and to beat her.
They beated her?
Beat her, they are saying, you see, you are superstitious. This is called superstitious. You have to sleep like normal people, how they sleep, while you are sitting. And your mind is poisoned, the blah, 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 these typical communist words, And then she said, I'm a very poor nun, and I never had a bed, so I just get used to, sleeping like this, staying in the cave like this. But then they beaten her, and they broke her leg, her hip and the knee, so she couldn't sit anymore. She said, in the cave, there's no bed. She started to sitting and sleeping. She said that was so easy compared to after her leg was broken to sleep normal way. She said that took a long time. She couldn't, normal way of sleeping. And this, and then, later she was helping other prisoners, and you know, she was, of course, very kind and helping others, this and that. Then she had some freedom. And yeah, then she was cooking and helping other prisoners and this and that. And then after a few years, she was released and she decided to stay in that village. So there are many people, they needed help.
She stayed at the prison even though she was released.
Yes, yes. In this village, yeah.
In the village.
She was helping the village people, and especially she was helping the ladies, yeah. You know, so Tibet, normally, yeah, like in her case, right, she was, even they believed she was a high reincarnation because she's a girl and they rejected her. So she knows this problem. She stayed in that village and helping local, you know, girls and ladies and, you know, but she's still a nun. She stayed as a nun, but she was very much involved in the women's movements and helping, taking care and giving some teachings and this and that. So somehow I think it was very good because people asking her, they know she's a nun, and for her, like she knows what happens in future for people. So she was giving suggestions. Okay, do this one, you know, this. I think that's the reason why she chose the prison, you know. But in the dream, she didn't tell us very clearly. She said, I knew if I go to prison, I can help many others. If I escape, she said, yeah, she personally, she will enjoy, you know. She stayed in the caves, in the mountain, not meeting anyone, and these things. But then she chose that. And then, of course, their nunnery was completely destroyed. But then she also knew if she waits, so this nunnery will be rebuilt, and then the nuns are coming back, and this and that. And then later, many years later, she helped to rebuild the nunnery. And then she said, I don't want to stay in the nunnery, so she helped to rebuild. And then she chose to stay in Lhasa.
Would she stay in Lhasa?
In Lhasa, yes, she has a very small room, her kitchen and bedroom and everything there. So I met her there first time.
In Lhasa.
And she's Jokan Tanya.
Near the Jokan.
Yes, very close to Jokan.
Oh.
I went to her, I said, I want to meditate. She said, are you ready? I said, yes. She said, I give you some time, you have to think. Or you stay like a layman, you practice Dharma, or you should become a monk. And then I told her, I said, oh, maybe I can become a monk. She said, not that easy. She said, I give you time just to think, you know. She told me, she said, I don't think you become a monk. Then I tried to be a monk, imagining I'm a monk, you know, to pretend a good guy. I was a good person, like behaving like a monk, you know, not talking to the girls.
I see.
I was in medical college already. I really tried to behave a monk. Then after 1 month, I thought, no, it doesn't work. My teacher was right. And then I went back to her. I said, yes, you're very right. You know, I really thought I want to become a monk because I want to study everything, about Dharma and meditation and all these things. Then she said, yeah, if you really want to study, you can do as a layperson too. And then she started to give me teachings, yeah. And yeah, I really learned from her the simplicity. You know, she was so simple.
Which one?
Simplicity, simple.
Simplicity.
Simplicity.
Oh, simple.
Simple, simplicity.
Yes.
She always had like this one belt all her life, and she had the rope. She had only one rope, you know. Sometimes she washes one, and then she's kind of half naked. She waits until it dries. When it's dried, and then she uses it. When it's wet, she can't use it. And I really learned this, her simplicity in her life, in her practice, in her teaching, and everything.
Lucky guy.
But at the same time, I don't know, I felt she's my teacher, my guru, and also my mother, spiritual mother. So I was very scared, you know. She's very, very, very sweet, but sometimes she can use very strong words. So, like, I was in the faith, respect, and fear together. Each time I meet her, like, I think that's good for mindfulness, you know. Each time I meet her, I'm there, you know, very alert. My mind, as in, I'm in front of my teacher, like this, and my friends, they're saying, "Oh, you are a very naughty student, and you know, you are very like wild. Why you become like strange person in front of your teacher?" I said, "I don't know." When I go to see my teacher, I really like freezes everything. And then sometimes she tells me, "Why you're not moving? Are you a statue?" I said, no, teacher. And then she said, "Why you are nervous? Why you are moving like a monkey?" And I said, "Oh, no." It's very strange. I always had this kind of experiences, and she really taught me the Dharma, the spirituality in the real life, you know. And yeah, every week I go there and she gave me some teachings. And yeah, it was a very, like the life itself. There I really thought later, our best guru is our life. That's why I often tell people, you know, we are looking for gurus, good gurus, bad gurus, here, there, but the real thing is we learn our life. And our life is really the best guru, you know. And I understood this with my guru. It's not she's giving me some teachings, you meditate and you breathe and this and that. And that it took time, but one day I really understood, everything what she did with me, it's perfect teaching. So that really transformed my life, my way of thinking, and all these things, yeah. Yeah, when I asked her to teach me Tummo and this and that, she said, "No, you're not ready." Okay, if she says you're not ready, that's it. There's no other questions. So I block, you know. And yeah, sometimes she gives me very important teachings without asking, and sometimes, yeah, I had a very funny this. That's why I always felt this importance of, feminism? Feminist?
Yes, familiarity.
No, feminism.
Feminist. Importance of the females.
Oh, feminine, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Because my teacher, she doesn't like to tell her stories. I'm always asking her something. And her main student, one was me and one my friend, she's a nun, you know. We are her more closest the students. We ask her this, but most of the time she didn't want to say much. But I feel also like she really experienced this discrimination of women, you know, in Tibetan society. And I see that, I feel that, and then later, my personal feeling, I thought, actually women are better teachers, you know, like they are our mothers, right? Our mothers not only teaching us A, B, C, D. Our mothers actually, they're teaching us about life, you know, about love, about really how to be a real human. Maybe our fathers, they teach us how to write A, B, C, D. Kind of logic way, this and that. So that's why she transmitted this kind of how it's important, the teachings are coming from, the female masters. I don't think this is because I'm a male and then she's female. I don't think it's this kind of connection. And generally, like how the female masters, they can really transmit things, you know, without logics or without theories and this and that. So for me, that was really, really, really important, yeah. And then because of this, she was very famous during the Cultural Revolution, you know, she did many healings and she did many other miracles. And actually sometimes she can manifest like two bodies, you know.
Really?
One day I was there in the afternoon, I was talking with her, I remember everything. And another friend, he said they were with her at exactly the same time.
Wow.
And she has this kind of very special things. When I ask these things, she said, these things are not important. Don't get more illusions. You're already in the illusion. She said, you should not have extra illusions. But I know she has these things, you know. Sometimes I know that her room, she has a big lock there.
Big what?
It's locked, lock.
Not.
Lock.
Oh, big lock, yeah.
And nobody has the second key. We go out together. Sometimes I go with her for a walk and we come back. There are some cookies, Tibetan cookies, on her table. It's a perfect and so delicious cookies. So I always wonder who is bringing these cookies, you know? No, it's really funny. But I can't ask her. She always says, oh, it's your hallucination. Don't ask me these things. Yeah, and sometimes I really think these cookies are coming from it's not a human-made cookies, you know, they're so tasty.
Really? So the thing was locked and you went out and then you came back and there were cookies inside?
Yes, yes, on her table, yeah.
On her table. What kind of cookies? Were they sweet?
Kapse.
Kapse.
Tibetan cookie, yes,
Yeah,
sweet.
so they had some sugar coated on top of the
Yes.
flour.
Mhm.
I see.
Yeah, and then I received the Pumbhajan. When I received the Pumbhajan, the story was very funny. You know, the Vase yoga. In Tibet, it's considered a very secret yoga, you know. That's why I'm telling you, you do this practice, but don't teach to other people, you know, if you're not qualified. So one my friend, he's a tulku. He has a big name, you know, he's a very big tulku, this and that. And one day he came to me, he said, oh, we should go to your teacher, the nun, and we should receive this Pumbhajan. I know she has a very special, this Pumbhajan. Actually, she has a special vase here when she breathes and exercises, okay? I saw it. I know this, but I don't tell people. He said, oh, we should receive this. I said, no, I don't want to ask my teacher because I'm scared. He said, oh, no problem. You know, I'm an important Lama and Tulku, and it's no problem. You just come with me, and I went with him. I was already sweating. I said, oh. And then this my friend, the Tulku, you know, bringing kata and money, offerings, and piece of gold, and very impressive offering. This. And then my teacher said, she said, it seems you want something from me. And she was very direct, you know. And then my friend said, oh, yes, you know, this my offering is not so much money, the gold is small, not so big, blah, blah. And could you please teach us Pumbhajan? You know, he said, oh, Nida is here too. You know, you are a good disciple is here too. Can you teach us Pumbhajan? And she looked at him, she said, oh, sorry, I don't know what Pumbhajan is.
Oh.
Okay. And then he said, oh, I have heard, you know, you have a special Pumbhajan, this and that. She said, don't you hear me? I don't know what Pumbhajan is. And then my friend, he became red, you know. And he started to sweat. Actually, I was very happy.
You were happy.
Yes,
You
yeah.
felt
And
relieved.
then we went out, and then he started to talk bad about my teacher. He said, you see, your teacher, I'm an important Tulku, she's not respecting me, wow, wow, wow. I said, look, that's exactly teaching what you needed. You think you are important, you think money can buy everything. You think, you know, gold can exchange with teachings everything. I said, this is the perfect teaching for you. And then he was angry with me. He didn't talk to me for a month, you know. He said, your teacher is so bad and she insulted me and you are so stupid, blah, 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 blah. He said, I'm not going to talk to you. I said, okay. And so then I told him, I don't want, like, he insults my teacher in front of me. I said, I know who is my teacher. I also perfectly knew that you really need this kind of teaching, you know. Right? Because in Tibet, you know, these some lamas or tulkus, they really think they can get everything because of their status.
Yeah.
And then they bring the money and gold and they think they can exchange these things, get all spiritual teachings. And actually my master, she gave back the money and gold. She said, if I know Pumbhajan, I teach you, I can accept this. But she said, because I don't know and you should bring back, you know. She said, I don't have anything to sell you.
Oh, God.
That's why he was very angry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this,
And then one day I went back to my teacher. I said, I'm very sorry because about this story. I told him you will not teach the Bumbajan, and I knew this. I told her the true stories. I said he really forced me to bring, to go with him and asking these things. Actually, he tried to use me too. I told her. She said, don't worry. I know the stories.
She says, I know.
Yes. She said, I knew the stories, don't worry. And it's very funny. Then many people, they want to ask her some questions, and they come through me. They ask me some divinations, they want to do some business, and they want to get married, and then they want to see, if the divination is good and bad. And so then my brother, one of my brother, he said, he's in love, he wants to marry. But he's not so sure if the marriage goes well or not, and he asked me to ask my teacher to make a divination. I said, normally I don't ask her divination. He said, I heard she's very good, please do this for me. I said, okay. I went to her. I said, my brother is in love and he wants to marry. And then she said, then it's good. Then
What?
she said, it's good.
Oh, good.
And then I said, he wants to do a divination if the marriage goes well or not. She said, if the love is the truth, why the marriage is not the truth? And then why he want to have a marriage? No, why he want to have a divination, it's
Right.
good or not.
Right.
Then I thought that's true, That's true. And she said, you know what? I know many people, they ask you to come to her and asking divination. She said, actually, we don't need to do divinations. Even you tell the truth for people, they never listen to you. Okay, and then she said, I don't need to do divination for your brother. He will divorce. Okay, she said that, and then I told the truth for my brother. I said, she didn't do the divination, and she just said, if your love is truth, why you are doubt of marriage? And she said, I told him everything. He said, okay, it's a little bit confusing. In any case, we are going to marry. They married 3 years, divorced. And that's also so true. People want to hear something, they want to this, but at the end they don't listen. They just do how they want. That's called the stupidity. I have really, really learned so many these life experiences from her. Yeah. And then one day I was there, and I just went to see my teacher. She said, now you are ready for Pumbachan.
Really?
And then she gave me Pumbachan teachings. And then you are ready this, and she gave me the teachings. And then is for the Adi Yoga, the Adi Yoga, I was very scared to ask her to give me the teaching. And one day she said, she said, maybe there are some teachings you really need, you just ask me. Then I said, Adi Yoga. She said, okay. I was surprised.
And particularly particularly Yuto,
Yes.
that was her particular thing.
Yes.
Good.
So then she gave me all teachings, and then one day she said, whatever book you bring, whatever teaching you want, just ask me, I'll give you everything. Yeah.
Great.
And then 2004, I went back to see her in Lhasa, and then she she has her books. She gave me all these teachings and readings and transmissions. She said, now I know you are ready. You are ready with teachings and you can help others and this and that. Then I felt something very strange, because she was so strict always with me. I had this kind of fear when I go to love and fear together, face all together. And then that last my meeting I was completely relaxed. I had a feeling like her energy is pouring in me, and then 2006 she passed away.
When did
She was 90 years old, 90.
In 2006.
Six. Yeah, she passed away. She was 90 years old. And then my friend, the nun, was there. And she was meditating for 7 days, and then her body shrank. Yeah, she had this small rainbow body.
I see.
Her body was shrinked, and when he died, she gave this her little room, the little house or the room,
Yeah.
to this nun. And she told already, she said, I give you this room, everything. She didn't have anything, she had one statue of her teacher, and this teacher, the one with dreadlocks, she said, this statue bring back to the nunnery, leave it there. And she told her clothes give to her, and she can give to me too. And then this little house, the room is for the nun. She said, I know your relatives will take this, will take advantage of you, but she said, it's better stay in the nunnery, okay? So when she passed away, everything is perfectly managed. Everything, perfectly. And then later, what happened to my friend, the nun, is her relative says, oh, this room, we can renovate it, and this and that, and you are nun, why you need to keep this room in Lhasa, and this, they give her some money, and they took from her.
Just as the teacher said.
Exactly, what she said, it's exactly like, they cheated, her relatives cheated her, the nun. And then he remembered, he said, oh, our teacher is all right. I just returned back to the nunnery, and then she did the 3 years of retreat, yeah. So I'm really expecting to meet my friend, the nun, in this August.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to Lhasa, and I want to go to the nunnery, yeah.
What's her name?
Nima Dhokar, the sun white Tara, that's her name, yeah.
What's that?
Now, my friend's name is Nima Dhokar.
Nima
Dolkar.
Durkar.
Yeah, but my friend's mother is called Nida.
Oh.
Same name like me.
Really? Oh, Nida.
Yeah.
Nida Durkar. And your teacher's name again was Ani?
Ngawang Jetson.
What?
Ani Ngawang Jetson.
Dechen.
Yeah.
Ngawang Dechen. Ani Ngawang Dechen.
And she was considered the reincarnation of Taglong Machul. Taglong Rinpoche.
Taglong Rinpoche. Oh, okay. Taglong Kagyu.
Yeah, Taglong Kaju.
Okay. Ani Ngawang Dechen.
Jeltsen.
Oh,
Ngawang Jeltsen.
oh, Gyansen.
Jeltsen.
Ngawang Gyansen. Ani Ngawang Gyansen.
Okay.
Thank
that's
you,
it.
Gela.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a happy dinner.
And something very quickly, if you want to know the flower chullin, okay, flower chullin, can you show them, please? If you want to know the flower chullin, so we mixed how many flowers?
I have 11. I mean, yeah, there's 9 here.
Okay, we are mixing, you can look at here. We are mixing 9 different kind of flowers, and then plus 8 flowers, and plus juniper seed, juniper berry. Take it, keep it. Juniper berry. This is the flower recipe for chullin, for rejuvenation, okay? So normally